Walk with me through the cellar door.
The storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have an amazing episode planned with everybody. This is episode 226, and yes, folks, we continue to make episodes, so hopefully y'all like them. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit different of a show than we have been. A lot of the other shows, we've specifically focused on like-minded topics. Tonight, we have a couple of different topics we're going to cover. We are going to discuss a little bit of Juneteenth, because a lot of people seem to not know what that is. So we are going to go ahead and actually have a slight discussion on that, as well as talk about some of where the documents came from. We are going to have our science segment back, finally. Somebody did a little bit of research on the show. It was not me, because, you know, I can't say science words gooder. So we had somebody do that for us. So we're going to talk a little bit about COVID, the effects on the body, and what it can mean going forward in the future. And then to wrap the show up, we're going to have a conversation about working from home. And this was kind of like an add-in one, but it affects me personally. And it affects the other co-hosts a little bit. So there's some discussion that's got to come into it, because as a lot of us have advocated to be able to work from home to help take care of kids and stuff like that during this time period, and kind of like working from home, for the most part, we're going to talk about what does this mean for your company, and are they either benefiting out of this, or can they help redistribute this back to some of the other employees? So to join us for the show tonight is Buddy the Lumberjack.
Good day.
And Hansel the Engineer. How are you all doing tonight, sirs?
I am doing great. I just put a toilet in. It was an awesome time. That was my Father's Day thing with my. I put a toilet in with 2-year-old and a 4-year-old girl, because why not? And that was an adventure. They only had one trip to the hardware store for a water line fitting that was female, that needed to be a different type of fitting for a pressure line. So I guessed on the length of a bunch of stuff, and everything was right except for that one fitting. So I guess I'm becoming more and more of a quality homemaker, that I can mostly not have to go to the hardware store 12 times for a simple project like doing a toilet. That's what I've always heard, is people are just like 10 times to the hardware store or something like that. So it's been a good one. It's been a nice Father's Day weekend. It was enjoyable. We we're still doing the family thing. Went to the Cleveland Metro Park system. So you guys might not know about this, but Cleveland has this band of metro parks that run kind of in the U shape through the whole thing, just kind of from water to water. And it's nothing like anything Grand Rapids has ever experienced. It's really impressive. It's kind of like if you took New York Central Park and kind of weaved it through the city, as opposed to having this solid block in the center. It's a stunning feat of protected green spaces for the city of Cleveland. It's really cool. It's huge. So it's something that we do to kind of take ourselves out of our little lot and our house that we have. It's pretty cool. So that was the other thing we did this weekend.
Fair enough. Buddy, what did you do this weekend?
I put my thinking toque on. Technically today is my Saturday, so
it's Sunday, right? It's not Saturday.
No, that's why I said technically. Listen,
okay.
You need to listen. With the like L space I. The way the kids space out the letters these days.
Demand I listen, but there's a good chance that I can't hear you.
You could speak more gooder, and we wouldn't have this problem, right?
I could try, but then I'd be insulting my heritage. No, I So today's technically my Saturday. It's my first day off the week because I work Tuesday through Saturday. So on my Friday, so the real live Saturday night, I went and visited with a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. We have finally had the chance to, because the stay-at-home orders are gradually being lifted. We decided that if it's just the two of us, we can hang out at his place, and I won't discuss the substances that or the substance that was taken in, but ate some pretty quality pizza and watched an amazing Bollywood movie, Bahubali. If you get the chance to watch it, it is the movie. It's part of a movie group, and it's what spawned one of those Bollywood action movie ridiculous memes.
Man.
Oh, it's incredible. Like I love the ridiculousness and just like how overdone it is. It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm not gonna lie, some of the guys that they've chosen for their actors, I'm just looking and I'm going, man, I was born into their own culture. Like those guys are handsome as hell. Jesus, they are good looking.
It reminds me of like when a movie leans into it, like Kung Fu Hustle did. Like
yes.
when it leans into the ridiculousness. So
oh yeah,
I don't know.
it's
I always like look at the Bollywood stuff and I go, can I do that for 2 hours? And I usually end up thinking
I will give you a recommendation. Maybe a little bit of substance assistance might help, because then you won't remember how to reach for the remote. You will just be sitting there having your mind blown with all the, and I mean, there's a lot of beautiful imagery, but yeah. Tanner, how was your weekend since you asked us? How was your Father's Day, guys?
Mine was not very good. But mine is not good for personal reasons. So we had my father went in and out of the hospital for the last basically week.
Yeah.
They took him to one hospital, which will remain nameless. They did a bunch of tests, kept him overnight. The next morning he was feeling better, sent him home. By the night he was feeling awful, to the point where my father was never somebody that took pain medication. My dad's not even 60 either, by the way. And he doesn't take pain medication, never has. And then, but he couldn't drink or eat anything. That's how bad it hurt. His stomach hurt. And originally it was in his chest and stomach. And then because he has a bad heart, we thought it was, you're having a heart attack, go to the hospital. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And they went back to the same hospital Wednesday morning, couldn't find anything, discharged him at 2, came back home, and I went over there Wednesday night. He's laying in bed, can't do anything, can't move. He looks basically like a tomato, then to a ghost, then to a tomato and a ghost, and he's just like, oh my God. And nobody would listen to me, and it was like, we need to take him back to the hospital. My father's like, I'll be fine.
A different one, hopefully?
Yes. Well, I said, we're going to go to Spectrum this time because the other one hasn't worked. And when we get that bill, we're going to file something, especially if they find something wrong, because this is not normal, but that's a private thing. Yeah. Anyway, so we took him, to the other hospital. He went to see his actual doctor in the morning, then went over his doctor's like, no, you're going to the hospital right now. Yeah. So they sent him over to the hospital. It took him about a day to figure it out, but they were at least able to bring his blood sugar down and his blood pressure closer to in line. And then come to find out he had a gangrenous, I don't know how you say that word.
Gangrenous?
There you go. A gallbladder.
Holy shit.
Essentially, yeah, a gallbladder of all things, right? And they didn't know if it was an ulcers before they found it was gangrene. And he had a really bad infection, but you would think would show up, right, with your white blood cell counts. Like, you just think these things would have showed up on 2 tests that this other hospital ran, but it didn't. So, so he basically was hospitalized, and then essentially they told us, hey, by the way, you're going to need surgery to have this out because you're on blood thinners, you can't get out. Yeah. So you got to stay here. Yeah. Then another person said, well, we're going to put a tube in to drain the, sepsis out of your system, and you just drain yourself and let's see if we can kill this infection before we have surgery. Well, this morning the head surgeon came in and said, nope, not happening. You're going into surgery today. It's bad enough. We're not waiting any longer. We're sorry. You have to take a little bit of a risk. And so then he had to have surgery this morning. And luckily he came out of it. So that was good news. Yeah. But essentially that's kind of, so I've spent a lot of time not sleeping, being a lot more sober than I usually am, to be honest with you. Fair. Because I didn't know if I'd have to go up and identify bodies. I didn't know if I'd have to go over to my parents' house and help out. my mom and sister have been basically constantly up there, and because of COVID, they don't let more than 2 people in. Period. So like,
Yeah.
it's like I was like, well, can I go the next day? Nope. It's 2 people, only 2 people. That's it.
Yeah, you can't rotate people in. It's
Nope.
Yeah.
Even if I've been just as cautious, they don't care. So which is fine. So like today we went over, and we had dinner with my one sister and my brother are taking care of the younger kids my parents have adopted. And so we went over there and like had a water gun fight and, hung out for 3 or 4 hours. And since the surgery came back successful, essentially now I've committed to go over there and basically help cook dinner and do some cleaning for them every day until, we could determine if there's, because essentially somebody needs to be there with my dad right now because things keep going in and out so fast. So that was my Father's Day. Other than that, I got a brand new grill. I got a lot done today. I'll be honest with you. I got a brand new grill. My wife even like took me to pick it out. She's like, I'm not going to even try. We're going to go together and you can spend this much money. Or if you want this expensive one, I guess we'll just save a little bit more and you could buy the expensive one.
Did you go propane or charcoal? Or
always go
propane and propane accessories.
Always go propane because I have a smoker if I want charcoal. So, I almost bought a dual one. They had a dual one for about $700 where it had 2 chambers, one that did propane, one that did charcoal. But it was more money, and then it had a smoker attachment to it. And I was like, well, can I just have these other 2 pieces? I actually would. Can you knock it down $300 and take the smoker off? I already own one of those, and just give me the 2 pieces. Because I would do that actually. I would do one with charcoal and one with propane in it. And they were big enough that, if you had a lot of people, you ran them both at once. And if you didn't, have a lot of people, you just cooked on whatever one you wanted. But no, I bought a 6 burner with a little side thing, a little slot for all your tools. But it was really cheap though. It was like on sale for like $150 off at Home Depot. So
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a good one. I got a bunch of stuff done too. I painted today, and then it rained with the sun shining on me at the same time. I had a 5% chance of rain, and it rained on my house and my neighbor's house, and that's the only. It seemed like I was so mad. I was so mad because I just finished painting all the steps to my deck, and then
the university is mad at you.
It poured hard enough that the gray leaked out of the paint and it was just white streaks left over, and so I had to go over it all over again. I was so mad. I couldn't get the plastic out fast enough and over the steps. I was just like looking at the sky, at the sun while it was pouring. It wasn't like a little rain. It was like, I'm just like, are you kidding me right now?
Oh, it was like old man yells at cloud.
Yeah. And it's like and it's one of those things where you're just like, if I was an older, more ancient species or version of humans, I would be like, wow, this must be a supernatural thing that's punishing me for killing chipmunks in the front yard. But I know that that's not actually.
Secretly, it was just chipmunks peeing off of the side of your house.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that Trump meme
Hashtag
that you
skeptic.
see where they have the ladies, best in the wedding dress with all the rain coming down, and it's like Republican supporters, and then on the other side you see the guy peeing on the other side of the fence, and you're like, "This is Trump." You're like, all right, that's kind of fair, because I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like yesterday, for example, Trump had a rally, right? So for those of you listening to this on the podcast, you're hearing, this is a couple of days old, but Trump had a rally. They couldn't fill the stadium. People did not have to really wait in line other than to get in. People were camped out. They didn't even have to do that.
They had a huge overflow lot and a big old stadium outside, and there was no one there. They had no use for it at all.
And they canceled the overflow. They did all sorts of crazy shit. Like
the fire department of the area just said that it was under 6,400 people showed up.
Yeah. Which
I
think when we went to the Bernie rally, the Bernie rally was over 10,000 people easy in Michigan.
At Grand Valley?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Grand Valley it's a Division II sports arena. Like D2, like not even like D1. Like this is and maxed it out. I filled the place up. So I don't know. It's just one of those, the meme or the GIF with John Travolta from Pulp Fiction where he's like
yeah, that was pretty
like
good too.
that's the best one. That's the best one that I've seen. But also I shared earlier one of the things I mentioned is just like when the the TikTok and the K-pop kids basically just burnt down Trump's COVID rally. I thought that was awesome because that's what they've been saying is that everybody did the fake reservations and just kind of beat them at the internet.
Yeah, which if that's true, I'll give them props. I'm a little cautious on that. I'll be honest with you to say
They're
that's
probably
100%
bragging a
the
bit.
reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. They may the conservatives may actually be taking this more seriously than the leader of their party.
Yep. Which
They might be.
For us, it's good in the aspect of I like it that people are social distancing still and they're still concerned about it. But the crappy thing is Trump's going to have a rally in Chicago here in a month, and not even a month technically. And you know how hard it's going to be not to go to protest that, like, or to record video of that. Like, it's going to be so hard not to want to do that. And I don't want to get infected with all these stupid COVID fucks. And I have a fancy mask, but at the same time, it's like, you know how hard it's going to be to not want to do that? Like, not want to go interview people in the crowds? It's just, it's going to be so hard not to want to do that.
It's easy not to.
No,
in Ohio. Yeah, it is. I live
Ohio.
I live in Ohio. It's everywhere. I don't know.
Either which way. Anyway, so our buddy over at thetrickleup.com, make sure you check them out. Last week we had Boyce on, and the new website is thetrickleup.com. And if you want to see some live stream from the actual Oklahoma thing, he had a friend of his on the ground recording live there. So if you want to see some, head right over to thetrickleup.com, and you're welcome to see some of that amazing empty stadium content.
Yeah, I was when I got to my buddy's yesterday. He had the news on, and yeah, he was telling me about this. And of course, Trump happened to be discussing criticisms he previously received about how he walked down a ramp and drinking water and all of that. And it's like, dude, for somebody who is supposed to represent the people who just don't care and are all, to hell with the haters, you really care what they think. Like, that seems to be the only thing you care about.
That ramp was really steep and there was no handrail.
Yeah, all he had to do was come out and be like, so they're criticizing me for this. Yeah. I'm in my 70s. I'm sorry. But then again, that would involve him having to own up to the fact that he's succumbing to his age and,
Well, he would have had to watch Eminem's 8 Mile recently and realize that the only way you win a rap battle is by taking away the other opponent's tools. But let's face it, Trump's not going to take that route.
Oh, come on. He'd be too worried about people being too ethnic. Him and his bunch of Karens. So, is that how they talked back in his day? I'm not overly aware of how his generation handled their racism.
I know his dad wasn't really good with that kind of stuff.
But if we go talk about previous things, the U.S. National Archives unearths original Juneteenth order. So just real quick, does everybody here know what Juneteenth is?
Yes.
I actually do not, so I am very interested in hearing all about this conversation.
Cool.
Okay, so let's start real quickly with what it is. Essentially, Juneteenth is the official day that the last part of the United States was informed that the people of color are no longer slaves, which was June 19th. And it was 1965. Yeah, there you go. 1865, which was roughly 2 years after the Civil War ended. So it took 2 years for Texas to be able to essentially declare all of the slaves free.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is important. And it's kind of funny because, again, I'll give it to you just because you are a Canadian. So
you're so kind.
I will say that I would argue, honestly, that Trump's BS claim, well, a lot of people call it BS, but it's not entirely BS. It's Trump's claim that he essentially made Juneteenth famous. He's not completely wrong there because I can guarantee you that the majority of people in this country did not learn this in school. This is part of American history that
you're
was
right.
not taught. And so as much as it hurts and it sucks that Trump is basically taking credit for everyone learning about this and making this a famous thing, it is kind of true. The Juneteenth situation is something that's also a little bit vague, and it's something I've heard people talking about. So like Juneteenth is when the essentially the last bits of Texas were told, the last people in Texas were told that the Emancipation Proclamation was legitimate and had been essentially freeing of all the people that were in slave states. But the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the border state slaves, and it did not free the northern state slaves. That didn't happen until the 13th Amendment. And so this is a big deal, but it isn't like the end of slavery in America. But what they've done is kind of consolidated as this like really kind of momentous moment, and they've turned it into, you know, this thing where we use it as like a yearly reminder of like, this is how long it took for people to finally learn about, you know, their freedom and stuff like that. Like it's people need to learn a little bit more about the history of it, but in the end, it's a legitimate thing that has like a lot of meaning, and it's definitely grown. And I think it's a great thing to have as part of our national holiday scene. So like New York, I believe just signed it in just recently that is an actual holiday for the state of Michigan, and Michigan did too. So yeah,
just
so like
recently.
It could come under these like kind of wonky scenarios where like people are like kind of, you know, Trump and all that kind of stuff, but like this is a good thing. Take away all the chaos and horrible, racism that we're experiencing in our society. The fact that this is getting written into the books and people will learn about it is, in the end, a really good thing for our country to be acknowledging.
Yeah. What I found interesting about this was, you know, you could see here, this is like the original, you know, document, right? You know, like, and look how ridiculous this handwriting is. I'm sorry. Like, I'm so glad we don't have to write like this anymore, but I'm glad we have computers. Thank you. Thank you to technology for computers. I could never do this.
I've tried. Every once in a while, I try to write back.
It's really good writing. That's not my handwriting. If you saw mine, you'd just poop your pants.
Well, like every once in a while, I try to write in cursive comfortably, but like, and try to take my time. But I don't have the patience for it, and I think computers ruin that.
Yeah. And then the reason I found this interesting and I found this important is because especially when Trump proclaims he's the one that made it popular, and it's like, man, you didn't do shit, dude. You haven't done shit. Oh wait, you keep children in cages. I'm sorry. Yeah. Are you want to popularize when we free all of the detainees at the border when you get ousted here in November? Well, because that sure as fuck is what I hope Biden does. Or whoever gets the, you know, wins. Because if they don't, then they're not my president either. And we're just going to have more protests, you know?
It's weird to claim credit for something becoming popular, essentially as a counterpoint to your entire presidential existence. Like, this is popular because Trump is so the opposite of it. But it's weird that he's claiming support or, like, you know, pride over it. Like, it shows you that he's able to essentially completely and comfortably navigate doublethink without any qualms or issues at all. He can hold mutually exclusive points at the exact same time, and he's totally cool with that.
Yeah. And the reason this is, you know, so this talks about, you know, what did, you know, kind of how did this happen, right? You know, like people in Texas, as great as they seem to somehow be, continue to take slaves from other slave states in the South, and then they had to send a 2,000 troop army to essentially enforce the law, which is, you know, when we talk about what's been happening over the past month, Trump issues the National Guard to get rid of protesters, which completely contradicts exactly what this Juneteenth, you know, means to a lot of people. The government finally said, all right, we've let you guys get away with this long enough. Now we're sending troops to say, you ain't going to do slavery or we're going to shoot y'all. Pick what you want. You want to fight? Let's fight. Otherwise, we're done. We already had the Civil War. You lost. Do you want to do this again? Which goes back to, you know, when we talk about flags and monuments and stuff like that, I get people's, you know, like there's the meme that goes around saying, well, look, they haven't taken, you know, Auschwitz down yet. And it's like, yeah, but nobody lives in Auschwitz. Nobody lives there. It's isolated. Nobody wants to live there. I don't believe in ghosts, but I sure as fuck would not want to live in there because of the horrible memories and the horrible things that happen. And yet, here we have
But there's also like there's absolutely no sense of like it's my heritage, my culture. There's no sense of
Yeah.
that. The fact that Auschwitz exists still is because it's treated like a horror museum where people go and are absolutely horrified. And I've never been, but I bet you it's one of the quietest places you'll ever go in your entire life because everyone there is reflecting on the horrors that humans can inflict. And people look at like a General Lee statue or something like that. Before it was covered in BLM's graffiti, they were probably proud of that statue because it's freaking huge. And you know, it's all comes down to like, can something be taken as a prideful thing? And the fact that you know there are historical monuments for things that were horrible in the past, but there's no pride associated with those things. There's a difference between the American South and the Confederacy. They say like this is our history, it's our culture, this is just showing off the past. Yeah, but you're actually taking it as a prideful thing, and you're saying that you know the South will never, or the South will rise again, or something along those lines. Like it's not a reflective and somber thing. It's a pride thing, and that's what changes the meaning and why you know it does need to come down because you're essentially supporting and celebrating traitors.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. And it's this. I shouldn't. I just defriend people. If you want to argue this, I'm just done. You're not. Hey, do you understand why this is wrong yet? You know, like I'll argue and I'll keep people around. You know, if they want to have an intelligent conversation. But I get to the point
There's
with
some
this. It's
people
like
I will, but
I'm done. Fuck off. Bye bye.
I've defriended more people recently than I ever have. I have absolutely like the number of people that I've seen. Like when I see something like blatantly racist or like just really like I used to just attack and like fight, and now I just remove people. I can't. I don't have hours of my life to deal with it anymore. But also, it's just like sometimes you know for your mental health or whatever, like you need to pick. Like if there are people that you trust and then are family or whatever, you can like you know have that conversation. But if it's just random person off the internet who added you one day or you added them because they were recommended, like sometimes it's not worth it in your life to deal with that. Maybe in person at a protest or something we can start, you know, because like they can't hide or by the internet. But I don't know, I have defriended more people recently than I ever have, and it's a weird feeling, but it feels good sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing here.
Yeah, don't feel obligated to follow. And don't be afraid of like if you're worried that somebody might make your life difficult, if you hit unfriend, just hit unfollow. That's something that I've taken into account just because I have a couple of relatives and I because it would create more unnecessary family drama. I don't delete them. I make sure that I just mute and I don't
You can mute people for 30 days or something.
What?
You can mute people out for 30 days or something like that.
It's easier. It's so much easier. Or unfollow altogether and not have to deal with. So
now think about it. Black people can't do that in real life.
So yeah, just don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Like you have to look out for yourself.
Yeah,
whoa,
it's brutal.
A bit there, so I was kind of a little like I'm gonna go by it just a little
bit. I think we just exploded Canada. Did North Korea just nuke Canada? Because they're pretty close to where he is. I'm hoping he's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's I think I think it's an important lesson. Like I'm not gonna shame anybody or tell anybody you don't get you're not gonna get a delay. You're gonna get bogged down or feel burnt out, and I get that because I feel that a lot, honestly. But I think what we have to understand is, guess what? Our privilege is it allows us to do that because we don't have to live that every day. And so I've been trying to consciously say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to engage as much as I can. I'm going to do anything I need to do to stay there. And what I'm going to do is ensure that, hey, at least, I'm trying to understand and feel empathy for those that have to do something that we haven't had before.
Oh yeah,
right?
no, it's the other end of things. Like with people that were like kind of maybe not as progressive as I was, but they're part of the atheist movement or something. Like when they post something out there that like they'll post like something just horrible. I won't even say some of the things they've said, but usually it has something along the lines of, you know, people not listening to cops. You should just listen to the cops and stop being criminals. And there's always, you know, a couple of buzzwords in there that make it pretty gross. And like it's different between someone not like posting something that I don't agree with and then someone being just genuinely disgusting. And I've seen more of that of late, that it's to the point where it's just like there's not going to be something that's going to change a mind there. The fact that you're willing to use some of those words it's just not like, so if someone had some questions or something like that, we're just like, I don't understand why people are protesting and why they're doing, you know, like that kind of thing. But like the fact that some people post things is like that guy should have driven over all those people and the, you know, just really really bad things. It's just I find myself like,
yeah, you know how many people have been driven over? How many people have hit protests in the last month?
Yeah, and a whole I don't know the number, but a whole bunch of those cases aren't immediately arrested either. But
none of them.
I'm gonna say maybe 500.
Okay, that's really high. We'll try 50. They've had 50 runovers. Like
50?
500. Well, I think that's a national crisis, man.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I just see like there was a semi truck that drove into the crowd, and I don't know how like no one died. How did someone not a whole bunch of people die? Like, so like people are getting out of the way or whatever, and so like I don't know. I just imagine the number of people affected by a car just going through is hot. So I mean, Christian Ferris, one of the guy that he's in Texas. I can't remember the podcast that he was on, but he's been actively participating. And someone tried to run over a group of people that he was in, and like they took pictures of tire marks on legs for like side bumps and stuff. So like they're not going to the hospital for it, but like it, you know, so it's not going to show up on some kind of like casualty list. But like that one car has at least 10, 15 people that were directly affected by it. I imagine there's at least 10 of those cars that have happened. You know, that's at least, you know, around 150 people. So like like if you're counting casualties and like people in a hospital, yeah, that number's probably going to be kind of low because most people are going to die out of the way. But still, it's just I see those kinds of things where people are really overtly egregious and totally neglectful, and to the point where it's just like this isn't an argument that I literally don't think I can do anything with this, and this is hate. And so I don't know. In some cases, if it's a person that I know personally, and I'll try to intervene or say something, but sometimes it's a mental health thing where it's just like try to do what you can, and if someone in person does it or someone at your work does it, you know, say something. But like you can't fight all the fights on the internet. Some people have the time. I just don't.
Well, you know, the nice thing about all of that, right, is the fact that I haven't been at work, so I haven't had to have those conversations. Like I did go into the office like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and I was over there helping them fix a computer, you know, get we were being taught a new way to integrate our FedEx system with our WMS system. So the guy wanted me to be there because I kind of started some of that, did a lot of it, have transitioned it to him. He's like, no, you should come and learn this with me. It'd be great for you to know this too. So I went. The other side of the office, which you can hear, because nobody's in the office, you can hear these two talking, right? And the one guy's like, and not part of our group, just, you know, part of a different group. And the one guy's complaining about wearing masks. The other guy's basically saying it's a load of crap. Then they're talking about rioting. And I'm just sitting over here just going, ring my hands. Like, and so, you know, I let it go. And then before I was leaving, you know, I kind of walked by. I was like, hey, I overheard your all conversation. And if you ever want to actually discuss what civil unrest is with me, I'll be happy to have that conversation with both of you, just so you know. And the one dude is definitely a Trump supporter. Like he's off the charts a Trump supporter, no questions asked, not anything that you can get away from. And we've had conversations because he went to the Trump rally twice in Grand Rapids. So we've had those conversations. Now, politically, he actually like is more libertarian than Trumpitarian. but he's definitely on the Trump train. And he looked at me and he's like, you know what, Chris? I guess at this point we don't need to have that conversation. I'm pretty sure I know how you feel. I was like, well, I just figured if you guys are openly going to talk about it in the office, I'd throw my opinion out there. If you don't want to talk about it, maybe the office isn't the right place. Y'all could go to lunch together if that's what you want to do. Anyway, so there's that. So, but when we talk about the workplace, right, and we're talking about, you know, I know I throw this tag up, is working from home stealing your life, right? You know, like I know this is kind of a joke inside of a joke, right? Because yeah, because is it really a little bit? Is that we're gonna do the crushing head thing again? Like every episode you do the crushing head thing, and either nobody knows what the fuck that is, boys or buddy, or it's just like this joke everybody goes, we've heard it from the Canadians for how many years? We don't need to hear it again.
I think it's a millennial joke. It's a millennial thing that you watched it after high school. Kids in the Hall was on Comedy Central, and you turned the TV on at 2:30 or whatever, 3 o'clock when it used to come on. So I don't know. We'll see. It's probably like if you start talking about Thundercats to people. But yeah, the working from home thing is something that, like, there's layers to it that I don't think a lot of people really consider. So like at first, I've heard a lot of people saying, like, the very first time that I thought about it, I was like, companies don't really need to exist a lot of times when it comes to like major office spaces. Technology is advanced enough to the point where most of the things that we do, provided you can maintain security and structural integrity of your information systems, you can do them from location. So like, what's the point of the big office with the cubicles and the boxes and the TPS reports and the printers and the fucking, you know, the copy machines? So like, that kind of thing is that kind of workplace is quickly becoming obsolete, and you see that as like a liberating thing. Cool, people are kind of being liberated from these cubes. They can potentially work. It can even be, you know, I need a half hour, swing it, but you got to click on your laptop or on your computer. You can log in when you're in front of it, and you know, essentially you are in the system and working when you're in front of your computer. You're not when you're not in front of your computer. All those kinds of different things. Those seem to be freeing, and right out of the gate, people were like, do we even need to go back to the office? And so like, I thought this was a pretty cool idea, but in the end, through some NPR news articles and some things that I've seen, I'm realizing there are some interesting capitalistic things that need to be considered when it comes to the employees and compensation, and who is really benefiting the most when it comes to people leaving the workplace and working essentially from home. And I think there's a couple of different layers or aspects of the conversation can come in when it comes to the hours that you're expected to work. And, you know, if you're going to be compensated anymore to cover any of the costs and stuff.
So I agree with you. I think there's some nuance to this whole thing. So let me start out just because I work from home a lot. It's a big thing for me. I'm able to do that. I have a privilege of being able to do a lot of that. And it has benefited me during COVID, but does it truly benefit everything or everyone, right? And so let me go through the pros and cons of some of this from my point of view, without even getting into the article or anything. And then we can see if any of them touch point into the article, right? So on my point of view, the positive thing is it allowed me to be able to help with some of the education of my children during COVID at the end of the year. It has allowed me to avoid paying babysitter fees for the whole summer, or negotiating food or whatever I used to have to do favor-wise for people to watch my kids, to avoid paying babysitter fees, because my wife and I both work during the day, some days of the week, right? So that has allowed me to do that. On my personal experience, I am not, because of my position, expected to work more than 8 to 9 hours a day. I am not chided if I take a break and make an actual lunch, right? Like, I had a couple of days on my calendar where the kids and I planned picnics, and I blocked an hour out and wrote picnic with kids. And I got, hey, cute. That's cute. Did you really do that? Yeah, I did. Okay. I get an hour for lunch anyway, paid, right? So what does it matter?
Yeah.
but nobody came down on me. I'm expected to do my workload output for the day. If it means that I want to do it in the morning, afternoon, and at night, they don't care. It's inconsequential.
So the hours can be like bits and pieces, 2 hours,
Yep.
3 hours, 5 hours.
I've had my boss question me why I'm calling him at 3:00 on a Friday when I normally didn't do that. And I said, well, if you want me to be honest with you, I slept in this morning because I was a little hungover. And he was like, all right, good to know. No problem. He's like, future reference, I am not hungover much Friday mornings, and I do not expect to be called at 3:00. So if your question's not an emergency, hold on to it till Monday. Got me? Oh, gotcha. Yep, no problem, sir. Understand. Full tilt. But there is an hour flexibility. Not everybody at my work has that, right? I have people that have clients that have to be serviced throughout the day, all day long. That's what they do for a living. They don't have that luxury. But I will tell you that on the con side of what a lot of people are afraid of, especially even at my company, is your work output the same? And the big thing is not so much, and this is kind of this will be me being weirdly contrarian, I guess. I'm not. That's not a weird statement because I'm always contrarian. But, in this case, I'm in disagreement with my work because it feels like employees are doing the same amount of work at home as they are here. The difference is you're not able to watch them 24/7, so they don't have to pretend to be busy. If I want to have a picnic with my kid for an hour versus go sit in my car and sleep, you don't know the difference. You can't see what I'm doing, so you can't question me. If I want to, if I'm sitting at my desk doing Star Wars Destiny deck building for the card game I like during the day at the office, you don't know that because I'm just muting my screen unless you're monitoring my internet, which you're obviously not because nobody said anything, right? And when I'm at home, I could do the same thing. But if I get all my work done, I got one of two issues. Either I'm not busy enough, right? A, or B, I'm being paid a fair comparable wage for the amount of work that I'm doing. And so then the question becomes and this is where the negative side of it comes in, the con side of it is companies lose control over the majority of their employees to understand and gauge work output throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the ability to micromanage.
The ability to micromanage. Another con, real quick, honestly, is the amount of time it takes to connect to have a conversation versus in real life. And this one's on me for the guy that wants to be at home for the most part. Though I'll be honest, I kind of like human interaction, so it's in my nature to not want to be cooped up at home with two kids.
Shocking. I didn't know that. That seems like very much you.
Yeah. But the conversations, like when I have a work meeting, and I have a working session every week scheduled with another manager, right? And she's teaching me things every week. And she's helping me understand different international guidelines, laws, regulations, how things intersect and work together. And I'm bringing, my analytical skills, and we're taking those two and like picking different things apart. And it's a lot harder to do that. Even though I can see her face, it's harder to do that when you're not in person. When we're in person, I get animated. We can click on a level. We can start writing things out on the board. I can immediately find what I need. If I can't find the information I need, I can walk 3 desks over and go, hey, Jessica, I need 5 minutes of your time. Come into my conference room real quick. When we're all separated, in fairness, that conversation could be an hour to 2 hours, which normally would be a 20 or 30-minute conversation. So you lose time organizationally when you have to have collaborative efforts on something, at least in my experience. And that's just me.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with any of those things. Keith, do you have anything pro or con differently?
Well, to be honest, I think I'm glad we're having the conversation because there's a lot to unpack. I mean, as you said, there is the benefit of, for somebody like you, they just don't know what you're doing with your downtime, but your productivity is still the same. Now, in say a particular team like mine, where as we're rotating through, the workload that isn't done on one team gets dropped onto the next team, and they have to make it up. Now, that kind of balances out because we're busiest in our evenings, so our evening teams, they tend to have the most amount of staff, whatnot. But if, you know, one person of our team starts to slack off, other people have to step in and help out. So we kind of have to police ourselves and keep an eye on, you know, to see who is like loafing or whatever. But on the other hand, you know, you're right. It's there's this bit of a problem where in, you know, the corporate world, where if they can keep an eye on you, if they see that you're bored, even though you've got everything done, if you're bored, that's bad. You need to always be busy. You need to always be doing something. And so you kind of get this mentality of, you know, well, if I'm not busy, I'm not doing anything. So you learn how to make yourself look busy, simply so you're left alone, because that's the only way for your boss to not be demanding more out of you, because like, oh, well, if you're, you know, why aren't you doing more? It's like, well, because you're not paying me more. You know, like, I do the same amount of work and I get the same amount of pay. If I do more work for the same amount of pay, you can make more money. I don't. So really, that's why am I not doing more for you is kind of that question. And that the ability to micromanage is really, really difficult. Now, not so much for, say, a workload like mine, because I can keep track of what everybody's doing because we do it all via email and I know where everybody is. Even though I'm not the team leader, because everybody on my team can check in on everybody. But I guess a little bit of a conversation that we'll be dipping into is, you know, also the whole separation of the work-life balance and all of that, where, you know, not working from home because, you know, you have a distinct work life and a distinct home life. But that's, I think we're going onto that one a little bit later. So I'll put a pin in it for now. But it's definitely a valuable conversation, like, for pretty much everything that you just said. You know, like, they can't hover over you and they can't watch you like a hawk and all of that. And it's, you know, as an employee, like, I know firsthand, I used to spend a lot of time making myself look busy, because if I didn't, I would be accused of not doing anything, even though I could say, well, I've actually already completed my workload, only for somebody to turn around and be like, okay, well, why aren't you doing more? It's like, well, why are you not rewarding me for being more efficient at my job? But that could be a whole other conversation in and of itself, right? So, and then something else that this is getting into is, you know, it's putting the costs of doing business onto your coworker or onto your employees, because they provide the internet. You don't have to. They use their own computers. You don't have to provide it, or, you know, all of those types of things. I mean, I think that there are some licenses and whatnot and other expenses that the company would have to cover, like the email servers, things like that. But they wouldn't have to be paying for like the hardware, the maintenance, and all of that. So
in some cases, it's even as simple as the space in which you are doing the work. So if you are essentially benefiting from someone being in their home has now become your office. And if a company has an employee working in that office, should that company be part of paying the bills for that space? You know what I mean? If a company has a 10,000 person office space and COVID comes through and says, nah, everybody's going home, and that company can reach 90%, 80% capacity with everybody working from home, maybe they say, no, this is fine. Let's keep doing this because we're going to save $32 million or whatever it is for this massive building that they're no longer paying a lease for, or you know, because a lot of times that kind of stuff isn't owned. There's a whole kind of racket for, you know, office space and all that. But either way, those kinds of benefits can be thrown onto an employer for employees changing where and how they work. And that was part of what I was interested in when it came to this conversation. That's more what this article talks about, is that whole idea of remote work, and in all reality, who's going to benefit the most from that? Because, I mean, let's face it, getting bodies to a certain place, the employee pays a whole bunch of stuff for traffic and cars and all that kind of stuff, but also they would also be spending money on, you know, real estate and all that stuff. So like, it's interesting to see how these things go back and forth. I personally have not been working from home at all. And I literally probably could not. As an engineer, I could work and, you know, design things and work on stuff on CAD, but my specialty is kind of immediate emergency manufacturing and custom prototype machining. So like, I help design things that people need 20 minutes ago, and I can kind of evolve a design and make it in my head while I'm doing it. And so like my work and what I do is specifically tied to the physical reality of machines and materials and stuff. So like even if I thought I could do this from home, I really couldn't to a certain degree. And so like there are some sections of all of this work that will never be able to be brought, to the remote work thing. So like that's another aspect of this entire conversation, is that in some places that you can't do this remotely. And so this is what I was thinking of, is like an evolution of what, work and labor and, what do you own as far as your own labor is concerned, and what a lot of people thought would happen in the future when, the future and automation came through, is that people would just have more time to do stuff. But we've changed what work is now, and then we're no longer manufacturing directly with your hourly labor. It's now your intellectual property and all that kind of stuff, information technology, which cannot be directly associated with like the body and the physical world. Just like this evolution, this might be the next place we go after leaving manufacturing directly and becoming information systems. Maybe this is this new hybrid area where work in the future. So all these Gen Z kids or whatever, this is going to be what it's like for them. Some people will work from home, some people won't, but it'll be really a hybrid existence. And that's kind of what I think is going to happen. And this is kind of like a forced scientific experiment on everyone.
Yeah. And if you go through this article, there's a discussion, right? So let's start here with the allure, right? The allure of, talking to employers. They're paying money for you to be in the office, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
There is some trade-offs, but they are definitely paying for you to be there. So the question becomes is, can they trust you? So like my boss always tells me he doesn't worry about what I do from home. Basically, he gauges my output by what I normally would get out in a week and what I've done. So, when I create 6 presentations in a week and, 5 training videos and all these other things, he doesn't worry. Even if it only takes me 20 hours, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because he got what he needs out. Whereas other people, they need that. Like we have a lady at my work who used to go into the office 4 days a week, and she magically had Fridays off, right? Because whatever. And we're just going to move on from that. But that's what she always has. And her salary reflects that, in fairness. But the problem is when I have to turn in, work content every week of this is what I accomplished, this is how it relates to COVID, and this is how it relates to furthering the company. I have to do that as part of like the junior leadership team or whatever the hell you want to call it. I have to turn this stuff in. And hers is like 3 sentences every week, like tops. Like I did this, and that. It's like, oh man, you interacted with 2 clients all week. Must be nice. You all know what she's not doing.
Well, let's face it, like she's not an advancement personnel. She's kind of a person who's just going to be sitting on the treadmill and she's not going anywhere. You are going somewhere. So like there's incentive and all kinds of, reason for that. So like there's a couple people that, work for companies and stuff that are maybe they're part-time or maybe they're reduced hours. They're older or something like that. Like they're in a specific place in the company when they're like not trying to grow. Like you obviously you want better compensation and all. Yeah. And so like some people like the company can see that and you're like that this is her ceiling. This is just where she's going to stay.
But when you look at somebody like that, the company benefits, in fairness, even if they have to pay for her space by having her in the office, because it's easier to micromanage or to dump tasks on or to give her extra assignments, whatever, like there's that. But when you talk about it, at $10,000 a year, what does that productivity cost them, right? Yeah. That's the big thing. What is $10,000 savings worth a 10% reduction in productivity? Yeah. And so like when they look at somebody like me, and in fairness, like, and I'm not going to toot my own horn, but in fairness, like I've taken calls after 6 o'clock. I've done trainings with people at 9, 10 o'clock at night because they work a different shift or they're on a different time zone. I've talked to clients after hours, well after 6 o'clock because they're on the West Coast. That's just what you do, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, so like on my side, I'm probably giving them a higher productivity rating to some extent at home. Whereas normally I'd force those conversations into a working environment. But now when you're at home, it's like, oh, I have a 9 o'clock time. I'm just going to cut out at 3, have dinner early, and be fine with it. And then if I spend an hour at night at 9 o'clock at night, what does it really matter? I still got my scotch sitting here, or my soda, and I'm still sitting around in my t-shirt and gym shorts. I could go for a run if I want. I could do whatever the heck I want before that. And I'm still at home in the comfort of my home, and I'm still able to service a client.
It's like going to a 7-Eleven or something. Like, you're paying for the convenience, right? It's like you yourself may be benefiting personally from that, and the company may be benefiting, but they also may be siphoning a little bit more from you. I remember hearing things about the Japanese work economy where they're expecting people, as time goes on, work longer and work longer and work longer, and then essentially there is no work life, home life barrier or boundary. Like being a small business owner, as I was in the past, that line doesn't really exist. And so it's really interesting to think about this from the corporate perspective, which is where I am now, because the whole idea of like, I'm at home and I'm I didn't used to have to do this, but now I have to do this. Like, as a small business owner, like, that was just the thing. You just did the thing all the time. There was no separation. So like in the small business world, a lot of the companies that are being really taxed from this pandemic, like, they're just, this is business as usual. They work all day and all night, and then you wake up and you start it over again. And so this is an interesting thing to see employers, like big companies, having to deal with. It's like trying to find a blend, because small businesses, like, the pressure is so intense.
No, and I agree with you, and I think that's a big key here, right? Is because they get more of your time because you can justify whatever you want. So when you're getting more freedom, which is a weird concept, right? And hear me out on this, because this is honestly a big weird concept, because I've always been a big proponent of this. When I traveled for a living last year, I was given Friday as a convenience day to do whatever I want. If I needed to get work done, I could get work done. If I didn't have work to do, I didn't have to do work. And I didn't have to take a vacation day because I traveled. And when you travel, you always work more hours for the most part. You always work more hours, and you're away from your family, and you're away from all these other things. You have a small per diem. So it's not like if I wanted to spend $100 a night, I couldn't do that because the company ain't going to pay for it, right? So yeah, you're right. The illusionary perspective is this weird thing. It's like the company's like, hey, yeah, you can get up and not get dressed in the morning. You can get up and not have to shower if you don't want till 11 o'clock. If you want to make a healthy lunch at home and not have to bring it in and be unstructured, we don't care. But you got to take these other calls. And so like, it's that weird give and take where you all of a sudden go, well, yeah, I get all these freedom, but are you really getting freedom?
Yeah, are we really? Is in the eye of it's in the eye of the beholder.
And I will also, in the vein that you're pointing out of freedom, there, I will also point out, there some people, they have how many hours of commute. A former coworker of mine, she lived across the city. It would take her an hour and a half to get to work using the city transit, and that's actually pretty good given how far away she lived. And our transit system is not great here, but there's
3
all that
hours
time,
a day.
yeah, that you're losing just getting to work, that you're not only are you dedicating to work, but you're also not getting paid for it. You're not getting that compensation under the guise of, well, you should be grateful to work, but you're saving that time because you can work from home. And yeah, there are pros and there are cons to it for the home worker, as we've been, going over. But yeah, even just like 20 minutes there in my car, that's 3/4, and that the round trip is, like 3/4 of an hour of my day that I'm spending in my car, just, going to and from work. And that's time dedicated, to work. So as you're saying, that does free up a bit of time.
Wear and tear on a depreciable asset.
There's also that factor to continue. If I, like, granted, because there was a lot less traffic, like rush hour was pretty well non-existent while the stay-at-home orders were in effect. And gas prices had dropped so much, like I was spending so little money on gas because, like, it's you burn more gas if you're stop go, as opposed to a lot of my work is just kind of straight away. So I was like, all right, cool. I didn't fill up for, almost an entire month. It was mind blowing. I love my little car for that. But
I miss my old Civic hatchback.
You're gaining the freedom in not paying more for as you were saying, the depreciating value, repairing a vehicle, and the maintenance, all of that, as well as fuel. So it frees up some of your income there too. So there are a lot of benefits to it. Like let's not totally gloss over that, but yeah, I just wanted to add that.
So I guess the other end of the things are companies benefiting more than like this personal freedom, that perspective that people have. Like,
well, not the oil companies.
Well, yeah.
So
Well,
here
let's
you go.
face it, nobody cares about them.
So this is the employee perspective during this article, right?
Yeah.
And they talk about, do you have ergonomic, desks? Do you have ergonomic chairs? Do you have what are you going to do? Do you have to purchase these? Do you sit at your kitchen table? Do you sit on a stool? What will this cost the employee? And so I'm going to be frank here, I guess, and just be very open about what it's cost me to work from home. I have not had to up my internet because I already paid for that myself, which now I kind of regret because I'm not getting that stipend. But I already had my internet up well before COVID happened, just for the amount of streaming in my house because of the show and all the other things.
So you could handle the Zoom and all the video conferencing then, yeah.
But that was even before that, man. Like, it was just because streaming the video games and our show, I wanted more internet so that I didn't have to worry if my wife wanted to watch Netflix in the other room while we do a podcast. I don't have to worry about that because sometimes that comes up in our relationship, or the dogs decide they want to watch some, movie themselves, whatever. And so I already did that. I got the chair I'm sitting in right now is my work chair. I went to work and took my work chair, and it's home, and it's wonderful. It's an $800 steel case Leap chair. Beautiful.
Oh, man.
You can see it. Wonderful. Very comfortable. Love it.
I can almost smell the money.
You can almost smell the money. And it's a requirement in this house that nobody sits in my chair and eats, because at work I did not eat in my work chair at all. And if I caught somebody sitting at my desk eating, I chewed them out. It's like, get out of my desk. And I found some guy when I went in randomly during COVID. I did find somebody in my chair eating. He's like, well, I like your desk because you have 2 screens. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Get the fuck out of my chair and stop eating in my chair. I was like, I don't eat in this chair for a reason.
It's a nice chair. I'm keeping it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like, you should take one of the wheels off when they're not there.
When you go home.
So like if anyone wanted to get anywhere near your desk, it would just be like this torturous thing. So they would be like, no, that's a chair that's a chair with 3 wheels.
Don't sit in that, kid. My company also let me expense and reimburse me for a chair mat for my floor, so not to scratch my wood floor up. They reimbursed me for another wireless keyboard, so I can have 2 of them.
Jeez.
We can have a conversation about why I need them later, but anyway, they let me take one of my monitors from work home and purchase a stand to put it on because they threw all the stands away. So now I had, like, normally before with the show, I just had my old Mac and my one monitor, right? Which I purchased a while ago. And when I came home, I needed 2 monitors to do what I do daily, and I didn't want to work off my laptop at home, which I did for the first month and a half. And then finally, my boss is like, just purchase a stand and go take one of your monitors from work, or go out and buy another monitor. We don't care. Pick whatever you want to do. And I ended up just taking my monitor from work and getting a stand for like $25 because it was like, whatever, that's $25. They reimbursed me for it. Another keyboard. I got another mouse. So in fairness,
so the company is spending quite a bit of money to like set up those home offices. Basically,
they're letting people expense roughly, we'll just call it $100 a month. Depending on your level, you're roughly allowed to spend $100 a month. It seems, because there's not been an official edict, but that's essentially what they're telling us. So like,
is that something that you've been seeing, like, or on
Yes.
in the article or whatever? Is that something that's like a thing that companies are considering as like a major thing that they're doing, or is it just kind of like a specific just to your situation for how much? That's my thought, is that like setting up a lot of these cases, like I most companies, my guess, during this COVID stuff, they weren't like, okay, you need to get a chair going. You need a new monitor. You need a stand or whatever. My assumption is that most of these companies are like, you're working from home now. That's awesome. Connect to your home computer if you're not a security situation or whatever, but like otherwise it was like a laptop that was probably going on there, and that was probably the limit as far as like my assumption is there were probably not expenditures made for people to have ergonomic chairs and stuff like that. Like I see that being like a very low probability for the on average populace.
Yes.
That's what my thought is. Like people sitting in their at their computer in like their kitchen nook on an uncomfortable bar stool because this is the only place they can connect to the internet good enough or whatever. It's like my guess is your case is probably better than average. And I'm gonna guess that most people are trying to just make do with what they have. I have a nice chair, and the only reason I have a nice chair is it's not even that nice of a chair, is because my wife bought a new chair, and I got this chair. And this chair, I have no clue where it came from. I don't know if it came from a parking lot or a garbage can. It's just this thing that just is here after I moved. But like, it's not particularly nice or special. If I had to sit in this thing for more than 2 or 3 hours, I would probably not be happy. It's like most people probably have chairs in their office space, or if they even have an office, it's probably not sufficient for like comfort and working for 8 hours at a time.
I mean, I've got a great big cushy leather chair at my office, but the chair that I have at home is actually because my father works in the furniture industry, office furniture industry as well. Typically, they do more of like the big commercial side of things, but even he was saying he's seen a lot more people coming in for just like building up their home office, buying like the Herman Miller chairs and desks and all that other stuff. I know Tanner's all steel case, but that's okay. People can be wrong about things.
I'm not all steel case. My grandfather worked at steel case. I worked at steel case. I'm not all for it. If you want to buy me a Herman Miller chair, an Arion chair, I'm all for it.
Can we just pause for a moment? Like, I'm not gonna lie, like ergonomic chairs, like there is just something about them that you sit in and you go, oh.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for my front door when you guys send me my Eames chair. So
nobody's going to do
comfortably.
That. Hannah, you make more money than all of us put together. You're not getting a free chair here. That's not how this works.
Yeah, this is not trickle-down economics, quote-unquote.
Yeah. You should be buying me and Buddy something. Like, we should be getting fists of whiskey every week from you, being like, here's our here you go. This is what you're going to get, man. That we feel so bad for you. You live in Michigan, and I guess I don't know. It's in Canada. They don't have good whiskey in Canada. I can't imagine. So not cheap whiskey, at least.
I've had maple syrup whiskey, and it was pretty good stuff.
What brand was it though? That's the thing.
Was it that Saltier?
I don't know. My grandfather, he doesn't buy cheap stuff. So like, but still, he brought a few decent brands and for the holiday season, and he spent so much time in Windsor when my great uncle passed away to dealing with the estate and everything. So like that was where I learned of said maple whiskey's existence, and it's definitely an interesting thing. I'm gonna guess that not everything that everyone sees in Canada is Canadian mist.
Well, true.
Fair enough. That's actually pretty fair. I think that's a pretty fair statement.
Yeah. So, anyways, like people are basically like building up their home offices, and like, are these companies helping them, or is this like a personal expense?
Well, I don't know if he would know or anything. We didn't dive too much
in the article. I'm curious if that was something that you saw.
Yeah, I mean that would be something that I think would be valuable, and I'm kind of curious, like, compared to like renting the retail space, paying for the cleaners who come through, paying for the electricity, paying for the internet, which actually was a whole other sidestep to the story that I don't think they covered here that I thought was kind of interesting. But there's all the upkeep for the office, the rent if you don't own the building, that type of thing. So I'd just be kind of curious if it would just be cheaper for them to give their employees and have an allowance system where you say that this is what I'm ordering or whatever, and they have it delivered to you. But I'd be kind of curious as to what type of a system would work well for that.
Well, it'll probably take a few years for them to like iron out the costs too of this.
Yeah.
Because this is like so new. Think about it.
Yeah.
Like if you spend a full year in it, like say this year is kind of written off as 2020 was a dumpster fire, and then so 2021, that's, let's say this is the standard norm, and we get an entire annual of what are the costs, what are the benefits, and people can actually do some number crunching on it.
Mhm.
What, maybe that could turn into this is what we used to spend on real estate. We've divvied that expense up, and it's either going to go to you as a cost for you to pay for your expenses, or this could be a bonus where you can decide if you're going to use it for whatever expenses, but those are going to be things that you're going to have to live with. There's all kinds of things that could happen in the future on this, and I'm curious where it'll go. I probably won't experience much of it because I don't have a office job that has the ability to change location. But like you guys will probably experience this way more than I will. And I personally think there's going to be a nice place meeting in between. But I have my suspicions on capitalism and whether or not they will see this as a place where they can consolidate costs and essentially pass those costs onto the employers with the unseen fear of, if you don't like it, go get another job. The job market is not as great as it was a few months ago, where 5%, 3% unemployment in relative, like it's not the actual unemployment because people that weren't looking for jobs is, so that number is much higher. But in the end, this is going to be an area where will the corporate overlords be able to benefit? And I am betting that they will be able to find a way to kind of line their pockets with this. There will be a cost profit ratio, and it will end up being something that where they're able to, maybe they'll, here's your stipend, this 100, but they're actually saving 150 net 50 per person, X amount of dollars, blah blah blah. Like there will be some accountants who will find some cool, quick, new way to monetize a lot of these types of things, and there'll be companies that make a lot of money from this. Labor unions from work at home people, like how does that work?
Yeah.
How do people collectivize and so like there are a lot of things that to this is it. At first you're like sweet, and then you think about it and you're like, man, this is complicated really quickly. And so like the United States manufacturing grid is smaller now, and so unionizing office space workers, unionizing people working in quote unquote white collar jobs or whatever, or information roles, or places where you're not manufacturing, so you wouldn't usually be covered under union jobs. These are places where people need to unionize. They need to find a way to do that to keep the benefits. So like, is society benefits from this work at home thing? If the people in your industry benefit from this work at home thing, you need to make sure that that benefit is equally distributed to the people, and not just going to the few people who realize, I can do this and do that, and my accountant said this is legal. So like, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, and I'm suspicious of this, any kind of positive decree coming from above. I really do think that it's going to get probably lost in the civil unrest of the current time period, as to whether or not the working conditions are something that's going to be immediate. But having someone like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren come in, if part of the administration for the next president, hopefully could help that, because there's a chance that we could swap the Senate, and we have some major changes there, depending on whether or not young people actually get out and vote this time. Like all of these things are all tied in to workers' rights and all that kind of stuff, Black lives, and all of this stuff. Economic theory is one of the basis for a lot of the arguments that if you reduce everything down from things that people are fighting about, it really does come down to, do you have enough money to survive? If you don't, then what is the system that's creating that? And so it's all blended together, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in the near future, because this working from home thing, I don't experience it, but I'm watching it from afar, and I'm realizing that it's way more complicated than I thought it was.
Yep. And I think that's the big thing, with this article. And that's essentially what they're talking about, is what are the extra costs versus what they're saving. I mean, they picked out, they picked your residence, right? Saying it's invading your home. That's what they based the whole thing on. And I agree with it, but I don't. And so I don't know. It's a hard
It's hard
one
to
for
isolate
me.
those. It's hard to isolate the variables. Like, how do you like X and Y? Like, there's too many things touching.
Exactly. I don't know. So it's one of those things
We'll follow it. We'll
that
see.
all we can do is watch, right?
Yes.
All we can do is watch.
Science.
Yep. So for the last segment, we wanted to do a science episode. We want to do a science segment.
Yeah.
And I know we're already over an hour, but one of the big things is this article specifically talked about a U.S. woman with COVID-19 had to receive double lung transplants, and she's in her 20s. And
Ugh.
I think that this is a big thing to talk about because we don't know what the long-term effects of COVID-19 are. We don't know any of that. And so I guess, Buddy, you were the one that kind of brought this to the forefront. So why don't you give us kind of a little bit of an input of why you wanted this and where we can head with it.
So, the big thing that really stood out for me is I'm pretty sure I've mentioned before. My aunt was the recipient of a double lung transplant 18 years ago, and she's still alive and kicking. She actually turned 60 in August. Sorry, I think I'm supposed to say that she turns like early 50s
29.
or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to lie about anymore. No, she's turning 60 this year, and she had a bone transplant, like I said, almost 20 years ago. She recovered really, really well. It was a really big thing for our family. She had COPD, and that was why she qualified. Yes, she had previously been a smoker, but she had quit and had a smoke. And I actually don't think she's ever smoked since I was born. So I think she quit before I was even around. So this wouldn't have contributed greatly. However, she did need lungs for a condition she had, and was taking active steps to, get herself to prove that she was a good candidate, because she, didn't want to be on oxygen anymore. Because if she was at home, she literally had what we called R2D2. It was a wheeled machine that provided oxygen for her, so she could go all around the house relatively free. But she had to wear a tube connected to this thing, and if she went in public, she carried an oxygen tank with her everywhere that she had to teach her 12 and 7-year-old nephews how to help her change. Which, I mean, in hindsight, she didn't have to. She just did to kind of keep us involved in everything. But, at the same time, that's not really a good quality of life. So when I saw an article about a double lung transplant on a recovered person from COVID-19, I was really curious, especially because it was from Life Science. And I went through, and they said, the woman was she was an otherwise healthy woman in her 20s. So scrolling through, basically what had happened was, she was one of the worst people in the COVID wing that they have, it seems. And she had to undergo tests regularly. She had to show, test negative for like 2 weeks before they were convinced that she was recovered enough to qualify for this type of a procedure. And what they did, or because obviously they're pulling her lungs out of her without her having to be dead, we can kind of get a glimpse as to the amount of damage that COVID could do to the lungs. And I will warn you, I hope you haven't started reading the article yet. If you try to pull up these and follow along with us, I will warn you, there's kind of a graphic picture of the lung afterwards. And as Hannah put it earlier, it kind of looked like a smoker's lung, but without the tar, because there was just so much damage that was done to the tissue. I think in here it said the surgery took about 10 hours, which is a few hours longer than normal, because of all the inflammation caused by COVID-19 had essentially left her lungs plastered to the tissue around them. So this means the heart, chest wall, and diaphragm. So the doctor who, the surgical director of the lung transplant program at Northwestern Medicine, Dr. Ankit Bharat, and I apologize if I ruined that name. He told the New York Times that the lung damage was the worst. It was some of the worst he'd ever seen. So I don't know if Tanner's going to scroll down low enough to see it, but essentially this thing, like this thing looked like a burger that was half cooked and mashed with cheese. Oh, warning!
It looks like the lung they used to show us when they were doing the tobacco segments in
This is your
health
lung on
class in
drugs.
school. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's your lung on tobacco. Not quite as black, but that is bad.
Yeah. Oh, it's that is not healthy tissue, and this is really important because again, this wasn't a cadaver that we pulled this lung. This was actual until they pulled it out of her living tissue, and part of the reason why they did highlight part of the reason why they wanted her to be testing negative for COVID is because after you get a transplant, you are on immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of your life because otherwise your body will reject the lungs or the external organs and you will die. But she's recovering, which is incredible to see. Yeah, and like I said, like this is an important thing to me. It's why my family, we've all made big discussions about we're all signed on as organ donors because we know that it can save lives. We know firsthand that it can save lives. Though it's not very common that somebody of that age would need one, and especially a double lung transplant. Like that's huge. Like you literally die during the surgery because they crack open your chest and they pull your lungs out, so you're no longer breathing. So yeah, so this was definitely something that I thought was really interesting, and I did pull up. They linked to the Mayo Clinic, talking about things about the double lung, talking about double lung transplants, because this is actually only a relatively recent procedure. I think it's only been done. I think the article here they said it's only been happening since like the 60s. Obviously, a lot safer now than it would have been back then. So they were first performed in the 1960s, but didn't become widespread until the 90s, according to Harvard Medical School. And obviously the provider for a lung transplant has to no longer be alive. So it's sad that somebody's died, but on the other hand, we now have something good can come of this. We can show the damage that this can do. So not that the deniers will ever listen to logic and reason anyway, but if we needed any more reason to be concerned and value the concern of COVID, you're looking right at it.
Yeah, that's
if you're watching a live stream right now, you're looking at what should be a healthy lung and is not. This was ravaged. So, obviously, we're only a couple of weeks out, so there's still chance for other things to occur, other negative reactions. However, from this article, it does say she was laughing, she was FaceTiming with her family. So that was that's a good sign. Basically, is after a procedure like that, if it doesn't take too long for you to be able to come to and talk to people, then you're a little bit better. Your odds are looking much better. So she's taking medication to suppress her immune system, which can increase her risk of infection. There is a few months of recovery. Like she's not going to really be able to leave the hospital for a little bit because now she's going to have to undergo various almost like physiotherapy. So after my aunt had hers done, I know she went to I went with her to a couple of her appointments, and they have a couple of really cool tests. There was one that she had to do where they had this, they had almost like a little test tube. They had a ping pong ball in it, and what she had to do was she had to inhale, and she had to have the ping pong ball rise to a specific spot and stay there for a couple of seconds.
I've actually had that test.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, one of the issues I used to get pneumonia every year from cutting weight for wrestling and everything, and it was always whenever I get sick, it's always the lung thing, and so I went to a pulmonologist to get tested to see, hey, is everything good? And they were like, yeah, no, your lungs are above average, but I had to do the ping pong ball, get it up to the red line, and then keep it there as long as you can, and they would measure the amount of time essentially. They don't tell you about any kind of numbers or anything, but like. That's one of the tests that they have. And so and also if you're a person who goes to a pulmonologist to have a test done or whatever, if you try to get life insurance, you will immediately have to pay way more money and it'll be way more difficult. So like even those kinds of things, like any kind of anything in your lungs. It's a really big deal when it comes to like any kind of protection and insurance and all that kind of stuff. So like anybody that has any issues with this, like if you had COVID and it damages your lungs, this could be a long-term scar tissue problem. So let's say you didn't get it as bad as this woman did, just a little bit of it though, it could affect your breathing for the rest of your life. Like there are people that that didn't have a bad case and they're on all kinds of medication now to try to keep everything stable. It's they always say like you're asymptomatic. You didn't even know you had it, but there are healthy people. I've heard the youngest I had heard was 34 years old that died from it. So
that's rough. So for a little closer to the end of the article, just past the gross lung layer, they did say that they've tested her several times to see if being on immunosuppressants could have reactivated coronavirus, but so far, nothing has come back. So, this is something that I would love to be able to follow up on this. So I think I'm going to have to try to keep my eyes out and keep my Google's alerts as is going, because this is something that not just as somebody who's interested in or has a personal interest rather in the whole idea of organ transplants, collectively, this is an amazing opportunity, and it's a great way for us to learn and really understand how this virus that just kind of blindsided the entire world and how it caught us off guard, and why we needed to respond the way we did, and why we need to be concerned about a second wave, because this shit could really, really ruin your day. Is really my takeaway on this one.
Your day not gonna be so good.
Yeah. So like in this case, as Dr. Barat was saying, as like the lung transplant was the only way she could survive. And looking at that lung tissue, I'm definitely not a doctor, and I've kind of played one on TV. At least that's what I tell myself. That did not look healthy. Like that didn't look like somebody who would be doing too well out on their own. So, but lung transplant recipients, more than 85 to 90%, as they quote here, they survive for 1 year and can function independently in daily activity of life. So that's an
impressive survival rate, if you ask me. I mean, all reality.
Oh yeah. Well, given
dual lungs and 85 to 90 survival, holy moly.
Yeah, the high survival rate, and as medical technology advances, obviously we're only going to get better about it. But this is definitely kind of a pro organ transplant stance that I'm taking here. But so it's take a look at it, take a flip through it if you're interested. It's yeah.
Well, the fact that anybody knowing more about this, let's say it happens to someone in your family, I mean, you just kind of need to know worst case scenario in all reality. Like, whatever got positively tested. Like, you need to be serious. You need to pay attention. There is no joking this. There's not like, I heard a whole bunch of people got it. And they didn't even know they got it. If there is anything that happens, you need to be 100% on top of this. Because like there are people that just in a couple of days disappear. I mean, they just, and so it's a really big deal. And it's one of the side effects of having a president that has downplayed it is that people don't take it seriously until it's too late.
Yeah,
and I don't wish that. I don't wish that on a conservative or a Republican or anybody. Like I'm fine, totally and completely eating any kind of argument where those people may hate me. They don't deserve to die. And like I hope they get good medical coverage, and I hope the scientists that pay attention to what they're doing can help them, because it's just terrifying. There's a reason why I don't leave my house very often. Like my family is here on the weekends, and then we just stay. We're taking it seriously. I went to the park, and we didn't even see a horse this time. It was us and only us. Saw a couple of dogs. That was cool, but other than that,
hey, dogs are cool. We like dogs.
So,
well, fair enough. I think it's something that we need to be worried about, right? But at the same time, there's only so many things we can do. We can't stop.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Stop so much.
So cheers to research and fund the freaking scientists that are figuring this stuff out.
Science, bitches.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, did I do that right?
Yeah. Besides making me some crystal meth, yeah, you did it right.
Sweet.
Fair enough. For the last portion of the show, we always do our quick saves. So for me this week, there's a new podcast, I guess it's not new, but it's new to me. It was recommended to me by one of the groups I'm in called White Homework, and this lady named Tori talks about different things that white people can do or listen to learn about anti-racism, non-revised versions of American history, and how to leverage privilege to create a more equitable world. They're shorter podcasts. I like them. It's essentially for me, an easy thing I can listen to. Recently they had not had until just recently they had not had a lot of podcasts out. They went from like March to June without anything, but now they're putting out frequent podcasts. They are a delight to listen to. And they're very well written. So if you don't listen to our podcast all the time, here's another one that you can listen to that is pretty amazing. Buddy, I think you're next.
Oh, yay. Mine is this is a YouTube channel that I found a little while ago. I was kind of looking for some music. Frog Leap Studio.
We've actually talked about Frog Leap.
Have you guys? Oh,
it's the only way I've been able to show my daughters that the Frozen song can be cool, because it's not.
I stumbled across them a long time ago.
Leo's
and
awesome.
What's his name again? Leo.
I can't. It's
Maracchioli or Maracchioli or something like that. And I've listened to a lot of his music. I didn't quite realize how extensive his catalog is. Most of the videos on his channel here for Frog Leap Studios, they're all like covers of various pop songs, and just really, really popular music and random ones all around. Like I'm looking at one he did, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Space Jam theme song. So if you're into the heavy metal type music, and you're kind of, because he seems like a lot of more about having fun with it. I would say give him a check, give him a look, go through his catalog, see if he's got some music that you likes. Just it's good fun, and I think days like these, something that we really could use more of is just, fun music that kind of helps us just take that time to just take a break from, the garbage that we have to see on the news and deal with in real life, and just, enjoy something. So, if you like this music, I strongly recommend Leo. He is pretty hilarious and incredibly talented from what I've seen.
His cover of Adele is something. It's something else. So anyways,
your turn.
I highly and totally and completely agree. You should definitely check out Frog Leap Studios, and you should check out Frog Leap's live performances. But I'm going to end the show on Arizona State and the fact that they found out that the most horrible climate change extinction event in the entire planet's history, as far as anybody's ever been able to discover, is because of coal burning that happened in Russia. The eruption in the area of what we're talking about here, it lasted for roughly 2 million years, and it just absolutely burned everything. They're talking about, like, this is a severe, the Earth's most severe extinction event. And so this at one point it says the Earth underwent lethally hot global warming, in which equatorial ocean temperatures exceeded 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So the water at the equator was 104. So hot tub the whole place over. I mean, this is a major global change because of coal, essentially, that was being burned in it's a volcaniclastic rock in the Siberian Traps, which is a region of volcanic rock in Russia. So this eruption was burning essentially coal-rich environment and increased the temperature of the entire planet. This massive heat event, and it led to catastrophic global warming, and that obviously is in turn devastating to life. So this is probably like the first legitimate, without question, analysis that has led to probably the most specific and locked down reason for one of the largest severe extinction events in history. It's like just more evidence as to the damage that uncontrolled global greenhouse gases and those types of things can really do to Earth. And the fact that we saw this massive event but also for 2 million years is when this happened. And so if we look at the history of the human life, the amount of carbon dioxide that we've been putting into the environment as humans exceeds the speed at which this 2 million year eruption happened. And so we're doing things faster than they did in this time period. And in the global scope of time, 2 million years, it's nothing when it comes to 4.7 billion years, but it's still way slower than what we're currently running. So more information, more examples of the speed at which we're dumping greenhouse gases and carbon into our environment can potentially change the Earth, and do it really quickly.
There you have it.
There you
Terrifying. Pandemics and global warming. We're all going to die. Yay.
It's 2020. What's next?
A lathe with a
real live Silent Hill fires. That's what's.
There's a lot of other things that go into that,
dude.
So you get that, right? Like there's a lot more that goes into that.
I am well aware.
As long as you are.
Things.
I'm very happy with Silent Hill, but there's.
I made one hell of a pyramid head. I don't know if you saw those pictures.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they were awesome. I know that there's some new games that have been coming out that have Pyramid Head in them. It's like a survival game where everybody gets together and they have to survive, and then one person controls Pyramid Head. I don't know.
All right.
No, I'll have to look up the link.
Episode.
There's a good game.
There you go. Thank you all again so much for joining us this week. We tried to get to everything we could cover. We have a couple other things we never got to. Our protests in the 60s, protests and comparisons. But that's okay. We'll get to them next week. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. If you have any extra capital, please head over and donate to some of the organizations we posted about 2 weeks ago. Again, the fight for Black Lives is not stopping. This is not something we can just go, oh, we're done. It's not. We need to keep the pressure up. We need to be aggressive. There's how many black people being murdered every fucking week and nobody cares. There's been how many hangings in the last week and a half and nobody cares. Five that are all considered suicides at this point. And you want to tell me how we've never heard about hanging suicides from public trees until just recently? Coincidence? I think not. Not by
the fact that they assume right out of the gates. Why do they go to that assumption so quickly?
Don't know. It seems pretty racist to me, but anyway, hopefully we'll get some resolution on that. Join us over at thetrickle-up.com if you want to see some of our other content. For the most part, we're on Cellar Door Skeptics, but we do have a couple articles that are floating around over there, plus all of Boyce and his crew's amazing content. Oh, it's been a long episode, boys. Don't know what to tell you, but it's been fun. Fun.
Always.
Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all, and have an amazing